Hello everyone and welcome back to another YouTube video. And today in this video I am going to be teaching you all how to properly mic up and record your drum kit. So mind you, there are pretty much infinite different ways to actually go about miking up your drum set. 1 mic techniques, 2 mic, 3 mic, 4 mic, 5 mic, and million mics. Today I'm just going to be showing you a relatively standardized way of just kind of miking up each and every drum and then capturing the sound of the whole kit as well. I'll give you some different options on how you can do that and also just give you some tips and tricks in order to make sure that you get a nice recording from your drum kit. So let's get this party started and start miking up my drum set. Part of the reason that I'm doing this video is because Phoenix Pro, they actually sent me like more microphones than I could ever know what to do with. As you can see right here, it's actually a set of multiple microphones. There's a kick drum mic, mics for the toms and snares, and also overhead mics as well. And they also sent me their PDM36 microphone. So a huge shout out to Phoenix Pro for sponsoring the video and making this video possible. So the PTD10 mics come in this little briefcase that looks like it should have a bunch of ransom money inside of it or something. It also comes with some clips to actually attach the microphones to your drum hoops. I will say that the construction of these microphones, surprisingly really good. All metal casings and everything, metal windscreens on there as well, so yeah, really good construction quality. Oh, this is fancy, look at that. Isn't this cool? I've never actually used a microphone like this before. This right here is the capsule and it plugs in right there. Super cool beans. Oh, and it also comes with a little leather carrying case as well. All right, so obviously for this process, you are going to need a drum set, which I have right here. The first thing I'm gonna do is take off all these old drum mics off of this thing so we can put the new ones on. So when it comes to miking up your drum kit, a really important factor to keep in mind is your audio interface. The reason this is important is because your audio interface needs to have enough inputs on it to be able to handle all the microphones you're putting on your kit. If you're using 4 microphones, you need 4 inputs. If you're using 8 microphones, you need 8 inputs. Along with that, you're obviously going to need some cables to plug in each microphone to that audio interface. A really nice little tip that I can give you is to invest in colored cables. See, this cable right here is red. This one's kind of a dark blue color. The reason that I like the colored cables is because it allows you to color coordinate everything inside your DAW. That way I immediately know the red cable goes to the rack tom, the yellow cable goes to the overhead mic. Anyways, let's start off with miking up our snare drum. So to me, the snare drum is the most important part of your drum kit. It's really crucial for you to get a good snare drum sound in order for your drum recordings to sound good. These little microphones right here, they're the PDM34s. These can be used to mic up both your toms and your snare drum. The drum clips that they provided actually don't fit on my kit, so I'm just going to use some other ones. But essentially the way these work, you position them like this, and then you pop this little twisty thing into here, hold the microphone here, and then just twist this in until it's tight in place like that. And then this whole thing will just slide over the hoop of your drum, and you can angle and position it as you need to. Another pro tip here, this will save you a lot of headaches. This depends on your setup, but I personally use a bit of muting on my drums. What I'd like to do so this stuff isn't just moving around when you're playing, you want to set it over the individual drums where you want it to be, and then when it's in place, you want to put the microphone clip over the fabric. So now even if you pull on this or your snare's moving around, it's not going to come loose. You definitely pretty much always want the microphone capsule to be angled towards the middle of the drum head. Now it's time to put on the bottom snare mic. I flipped the snare around just so you can see what's going on, but we're going to put this back over there. The bottom snare mic is just like the top one, but we're going to flip it and mic up the bottom head instead. And it's important that we line these up evenly so we don't have any phasing issues. So I'm just going to basically draw a line like this, and then clamp it there. And make sure underneath here that this mic is angled up towards the snare wires. And you really want to make sure you tighten the clamp, because otherwise the more you play, the more this microphone is going to move around and kind of droop down. Now our snare drum is set up and ready to go, and it's important that we position these snare microphones facing away from the cymbals. It's pretty much unavoidable, there's going to be some bleed in all of your drum mics. But we want to try to minimize that as much as possible with the way that we mic up our kit. So by facing our microphones away from the cymbals, we try to capitalize on as much of that off-axis rejection from the mic as possible. Now we're going to move on to the toms because it's more or less the same process. I'm just going to take this and clamp it over the bandana, position it where I want it, and plug it in with my colored cable. That's right, the procedure for the floor tom is also exactly the same. Clip this bad boy on there and plug it in. Alright, so now we move on to the kick/bass drum, which is not very difficult, but it's hard for me to film because my kit is pushed up against the wall, as you can see. But what I have back there is one of these short little tiny microphone stands, which is absolutely perfect for miking up your kick drum. And this is really just the same process. We're going to screw in the kick mic onto the end of this and then just put it back there. One thing you want to keep in mind is that the further inside the kick drum you go, closer to the batter head, the more you're going to capture the actual punch and the attack of the beater hitting the head. The further out you move the microphone, the more you're going to capture the drum actually resonating and the full sound of the kick drum. You just kind of have to experiment with it and see what works best for you. Like I showed you for the kick microphone, I'm using an actual stand, and you can use stands for any of these microphones as well. You don't have to use these drum mic clips. I like them because they save space, but some people say they might, kill the resonance in your drums. Depending on your drums and your setup, they might cause some rattling or anything like that. But definitely a pro tip that I have if you're using stands is to make sure that there's no stands touching any part of the kit. When you hit the drums and they vibrate, they're going to shake against the stands, and you might get some weird rattling or buzzing noises in your recording, and you'll be like, what is that? Speaking of microphone stands, now we're going to move on to the overhead mics. There's a lot of different methods for this. I'm going to show you a couple different ones, but it's kind of unavoidable. You're going to need at least one microphone stand, probably two for this. So we're going to take our microphone stand here, and we're going to attach these microphone clips that are included in the PTD-10, and we're going to take one of our small diaphragm condensers, the PDM-35, and just shove it in there. So when it comes to overhead microphones, you can either do mono or stereo. Stereo obviously is going to involve you setting up two microphones, and mono is just one mic. I generally do mono just because I'm lazy and it's a lot easier. If I'm going to do a mono overhead, what I'll do is I'll just bring this out towards kind of the middle of the kit in general, and this right here will pretty much be my overhead mic. A few things to consider here, and these principles are going to apply to stereo overheads and also pretty much any other microphone you're putting on the drum set. The further upwards you have this microphone, the more it's going to capture the full sound of the kit, and the lower down you have it, the more it's going to capture the snare drum and the rack tom and this general area. Think of the way that the microphone captures sound kind of like the beam of a flashlight. If I have this flashlight and I hold it really close to the wall, it's illuminating only that small portion, but if I bring it back, look at that! I can light up the whole wall. So generally with overheads, I like to have them pretty high up, as high as my cheap microphone stands will allow. But also, another thing to consider is that where you have it positioned over the kit is also going to make a big difference as well. If I got the microphone way over here towards the ride and the floor tom, it's going to pick up a lot more ride and floor tom. Same thing as if I had it over here, it's mostly just going to pick up the cymbals on this side. Okay, now we got our second microphone, and I'm going to show you some stereo overhead miking techniques. So the main one that people do is just a stereo overhead pair. The way we're going to do this to minimize phasing issues is we're going to have them evenly spaced apart. You can grab a tape measure and get real precise with this, but the way I like to do it, grab a couple drumsticks, and these are going to be how you measure. We want to try to aim for these microphones to be spaced an equal distance from the center of your snare drum. I like where this microphone's at, so I'm just going to hit one of these, do this, and then do this. It's about 2 2/3 drumsticks distance away. So we're just going to match that on this side. So this microphone should be about here. It doesn't have to be 100% exact. Some engineers and producers are going to tell you gotta have it be the exact distance. Down to the millimeter, it's gotta be the same distance away. Whatever. If that floats your boat, then go ahead and do that. Alright, so now another way you can do this, kind of an iteration of this, instead of using these as overhead microphones to capture the entire kit, what we can do is use them as cymbal microphones. Just bring these down and just point them directly at the cymbals like that. This one's kind of getting both the crash and the hi-hat, so we'll just put it like in this general area. Doing this kind of cymbal mic vibe is going to provide you a lot of definition and clarity in the high end and in your cymbals, but you're not going to get as much of a big wide sound of the kit, because at this point basically everything is close mic. Close micing drums sounds really cool recorded, but it's not really the way that we hear drums live. If you just think about it logically, you're not listening to the drum like this. You're listening to it from a few feet away, hearing the sound of the entire kit. So if you're going for a more live or realistic drum sound, back the microphones off the kit and you'll capture more of the full kit as we hear it in the room. Another fun little vibe we can do with the stereo pair is instead of having them a space pair, we can do an XY configuration. So I don't really think I have enough space for it in my setup, but I'll just show you how to do it. You want to get these microphones to where they're the same height, basically like right on top of each other, and then you're just going to position the capsules of the microphones at a 90-degree angle, perpendicular to each other, if you will, and then you just want to position these right over the top of the kit, and just the same as any other stereo miking technique, you're going to pan one to one side and one to the other side. So those are a few options you can do as far as the overhead mics. Like I said, there are infinite combinations. There are a bunch of other ways to do stereo recording techniques as well. It just depends on your setup and the microphones that you have and the inputs that you have on your interface. Like I said, if you got a billion million inputs, you can use a billion million microphones. So for this video, I'm just going to do a simple little spaced pair. So the last piece of the puzzle here is going to be the room microphone. In my opinion, this is where you can get the most crazy and wacky and creative. There's really no standard way to record a room microphone. If you follow the channel and you've seen any of my other videos, you'll know that my room mic technique is essentially just throwing a microphone on my bed and calling it a day. I have honestly no idea where to put this room mic. There we go. figured it out. Which is really totally fine because the room microphone doesn't have to capture anything specific other than the sound of the room. I can just plug this thing in, toss it on my bed, and call it a day. All the pro engineers and producers out there would probably have a conniption if they found out you're doing that, but if it sounds good, it's good. So that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna just toss this on my bed, but definitely experiment with, putting it outside of the room and getting like a hallway recording. I've seen some people use a microphone to mic up the wall of their studio. You can get totally wacky and creative like this. There are no rules. So when we're getting ready to record our microphones, a couple things you want to keep in mind. First of all, the kick microphone and tom/snare microphones, those are dynamic mics, which means they do not need external power/phantom power to be able to run. These bad boys right here and this bad boy right here, they do need external power. So somewhere on your audio interface, you're going to see a button that says 48V, or it'll say phantom power or something of that nature. You want to plug the microphones in and then turn that on. Same deal if you're unplugging the microphones, turn phantom power off and then unplug them. If you don't do this, it can potentially damage the microphones and you don't want that. But once you've made sure that all your microphones are plugged in and then also plugged into your audio interface, phantom power is activated for the microphones that need it, then at that point you are pretty much ready to record. So I'm actually going to be recording these drums in FL Studio, but obviously everything I've shown you will work with whatever DAW you're using. If you do want to see a proper tutorial on how to record and mix and do all that stuff with drums in FL, definitely go check out this video. Right there. So you want to go ahead and assign every microphone to its own track within your DAW, set all those tracks to record mode, and then hit record, and you should be able to start recording your drums. But be prepared to have to do a lot of tweaking, because when you're recording a new microphone setup for the first time, there's going to be at least 2 or 3 things that go wrong, I can promise you. You forgot to turn phantom power on. One of the microphones is way too loud. One of the microphones isn't plugged in. You have the wrong audio driver in your DAW. Something's going to go wrong, and you're going to have to adjust it. That's just the nature of the game here. But I'm going to go ahead and record these bad boys. So that right there is all the drum microphones combined together, and that's how they sound. Now I'm going to give you a little taste of how each microphone sounds individually so you can hear what it adds to the mix. The actual process of recording and mixing the drums is a whole other thing. If I included that, this would be like an 1.5 hour long video, but I do have some other videos on that if you want to check those out. Some quick recording tips that I can give you. Number 1, make sure that you reverse the polarity on one of the snare mics. This is huge because both of those mics are recording the same thing but flipped opposite ways. I generally like to reverse the phase on the bottom snare mic, but whatever sounds best to you. Also, I like to cut out a lot of the space where the close mic drums are not picking up the actual thing they're supposed to pick up. So like for example, on the floor tom, I cut out anything that's not a floor tom. That will just give you a lot cleaner and more concise recording. But in all honesty, the rest of it is pretty much up to you and your creative direction and how you want your drums to sound. I've given you pretty much the basics that I use personally, and you can kind of take these and build off of them and develop your own drum miking techniques as well. That is pretty much going to do it for me in this one here today. Hopefully you learned a little something at least about miking up drum kits. Again, a huge shout out to Phoenix Pro for sponsoring the video and providing all these awesome drum mics. Definitely go check them out. Thank you all for watching. I really appreciate it as always, and I will see you all in the next video.